Då vänder vi oss mot nästa bolag som ska presentera här på Aktieportföljen live. Och när vi gör det så byter vi också språk till engelska. We welcome Qlife CEO Thomas Warthoe, who will be presenting. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
I'll simply hand over the word to you, and then I'll return in just a moment to ask a few questions.
All right, then I'll take it from here. Thank you for that, and hello to everyone. Qlife has developed the EcoHealth platform, a platform that makes it possible to test for various blood biomarkers in your home, either by a healthcare professional or by yourself. It sounds maybe easy to do that, but actually there is no system today that makes it possible to do that. Or to be more precise, there is no system which is approved for doing that. So there are lots of systems, so-called point of care systems, that are approved to be run by a professional person. But there's no system approved for being operated in your home by yourself. And at Qlife, we expect EcoHealth, our product platform, to be the first one, and thereby facilitating that most blood data can be sent from your home and into a healthcare facility for further follow-ups. Now, for the next 20 minutes, I will focus on the following points. First, I will talk a little bit about the background and where we are today. Then I will tell you a little bit about our focus field, which is called Hospital at Home. And then recently, we have entered into an agreement with a Chinese company, and I will talk a little bit about the structure of that agreement. I will get into the value of the agreement and the milestones, and then finally, I will tell you a little bit about our plan forward and a short summary. So you can ask, why is it important to be able to send blood data from your home by yourself? Well, I think as we all more and more realize, resources are limited, and public healthcare in particular is expensive to run. We all know that. People are, at the same time living longer life. We are getting as mentioned, we need solution for increasing productivity to be able to treat more patients. So we need to develop models to do that. One model is what we call hospital at home, where a percentage of patients that are not necessarily critically or acute ill can be hospitalized in their own home, as opposed to being in the hospital. One of the key barriers for this model is exactly to be able to send blood data from your home. Because typically there are 3, 4, 5 blood data points that a doctor absolutely needs to see and to monitor constantly, in order to follow the patient. And if you have to bring the patient into the hospital to get those numbers, you might as well just keep the patient and them having them occupy a bed. So alternatively, what we propose with EcoHealth is that the blood data can be taken in the home by the patient self or by a healthcare personnel that goes to the home. Maybe the family can help to do it. Somehow it can definitely be done. And this is a much cheaper model that hospitals all over the world today is testing out. I just wanted to give you an example here. Since Qlife, we are listed in Sweden, but we are actually operational in Denmark. So we use Denmark as our focus country, and it's also here that we are running studies. Currently, we are running a study at North Zealand hospitals where we are focused on patients with pneumonia, actually patients that are having influenza, but eventually it turns into pneumonia and potentially, people can die for that. Every year in Denmark, there are 48,000 people that are hospitalized with pneumonia. Many of these people already have one or several conditions and therefore is at risk of being seriously ill from pneumonia. At the same time, these people are not necessarily better treated in the hospital, since they often just need to be monitored with the blood values I was talking about, in order to secure that the numbers doesn't increase, especially their infection data, and hence, otherwise they would get seriously ill. And this can be done from home. And there are certainly other diseases that fit the same category of people with chronic conditions that there are more and more of that become sick or something else, and actually just as well could be hospitalized in their own home and monitored from there, provided, of course, the important blood values can be obtained. So from the studies that we at Qlife participate, we estimate that in the long run, up to around 20% of hospital beds can be freed up under this model. And this would transition into very large public healthcare savings. It's obviously something that will take time, and we start out now, but eventually we think the number 20% is possible to reach. Now at Qlife, being a small company, we have decided to focus only on few markets with this hospital at home focus. Being in Denmark, we are running our studies here, but the two other big markets that we are focused on is China and the UK. In the UK, we see that the public sector healthcare is under tremendous burden, and there's a very big interest in having people hospitalized at home. But the really big market that we are focused on is China. And I'm very happy to be able to say that we have recently struck a deal with a very significant company in China called Hipro Biotechnology. Hipro is a company that has developed their own point of care system, which they are selling to around 14,000 hospitals in China. The numbers over there are pretty overwhelming always. There's more than 35,000 hospitals in China. And Hipro is, as I said, selling to 14,000 of them. Now, the deal that we have struck with Hipro is exactly focused on what I talked about before, hospital at home. And it was really tremendously nice to meet with Hipro and find out that they have the exact same vision as we do, namely to be able to transit people from hospital into their home. Now, the agreement that we have struck with Hipro is structured so that there are 4 important points that we are focused on together. First of all, it's about integration of reagents, meaning that, when Qlife, when we are implementing different types of assays, different types of tests on the EcoHealth platforms, we are purchasing our reagents commercially from wherever we can get the best quality and the reagent that fits our platform. But with Hipro, and we do that with 2, 3, 4 biomarkers. But with Hipro, they today have more than 35 tests on their system. And more importantly, the assay methodology and structure that they use is directly possible to implement on EcoHealth. And that means that we very quickly actually can scale up to have a pretty significant menu of tests on our at-home system. The other big point is, of course, the regulatory approval, which I was talking about before, which is very heavy for a small company. But here we are talking to a company that has already done this more than 35 times with the Chinese FDA. It's a process that they are very familiar with. And under the agreement, Hipro will carry all costs associated to getting all the approvals for the Chinese market. And on top of that, there's another interesting aspect, which is that in China, you can actually CE mark products for the European market. And Hipro works with the German TÜV, which is one of the very big notified bodies where you normally need to file all your documentation to be approved. They work with them, and hence for Qlife, it is actually possible that we can run our CE marking process in China for the European market, which I think is a tremendous cost saving for the company. And then, of course, the commercial point is that Hipro will distribute and sell our EcoHealth platform to the Chinese hospitals. We have struck a very interesting deal. I will give you the value of that deal on the next slide. We are very happy with that. And the final point is also a major one. One is that the production of the EcoHealth system will be transitioned to China. First, we will focus on the consumables because those are the ones that we really need to scale in volume and get COGS down. And eventually, we will also transition the device to China. Of course, we are very much aware that, setting up in China, we all know there are some dangers associated with that. We believe we have a fairly good model to accommodate that. And especially for the device, it will take years before we actually have it fully manufactured in China so that we can sort of learn from during the process, how things are developing. So we will keep key components here in Scandinavia for as long as possible. Now, this picture I'm showing here was taken, I think, around 5 days ago, where we were celebrating together with Hipro, Chinese style, which was really, really nice, really very nice people. And the value of the agreement I have summarized here, the 4 points I think that are important. First of all, under the agreement, Hipro will take 3 tests forward. The first one being our C-reactive protein test, which is our test for measuring infection levels. And then they will carry 2 more under the agreement, which probably is going to be in the cardiac field, because that's one of the major organs that needs to be monitored when you are in the home and hospitalized. In the longer run, probably also kidney, liver, metabolism, etc. kind of test will also be on the menu. But initially 3 tests during the next 12 to 18 months. Then Hipro is forecasting that sales first year with the EcoHealth platform in China will consist or will correspond to around 10 to 20% of current Hipro sales, which is 25 million units. So that corresponds to around 2.5 to 5 million EcoHealth test capsules. And if we calculate that into conservatively what that would mean in terms of revenue for Qlife, we are in the range of 100 to 200 million SEK first year, which is probably going to be 25, maybe 12 months, a little bit into 26 once we are ready. And 5 years later, we are forecasting together that, conservatively speaking, sales would be in the 300 to 500 million SEK from the Chinese market to Qlife. And of course, I need to emphasize here, but when I talk about this revenue structure here, it obviously is Hipro revenues. It's important to say that we will receive, there will be a profit sharing on the gross margin, and here Qlife is secured 20% of that. So Qlife will always get 20% of the profit, the gross margin from these sales figures. In terms of the milestones under the agreement, I have listed it here, the 3 tests I'm talking about. We will start the integration in January 24, focusing on CRP. The second test will start in March, the third one in May. Then we expect that in June 24, we will submit in China the first application for our C-reactive protein test, the second one in August, the third one in October. And then the expectation is that our CRP test will be approved from October, December next year, at what time we would start to sell the product into the Chinese market through Hipro. The second one would be approved, we expect, between December, February, and the third one between February, April. So that's really the milestones and the timelines that we are focused on achieving at this time. Now, here at the end, just a little bit about the strategy plan and where we are going to be focused forward for Qlife. First of all, I think it's important to mention that Qlife has gone through what we call a cost reduction program under COVID, where we were one of the big suppliers here in Denmark, selling to professional sports and everything else in that category. Being 75 people, today we are down to 12. And that's actually a model that's quite nice because in the meantime, and because of everything I talked about, the platform today is quite mature, and we only need 12 people to basically operate the system and make sure that we can work through partnerships. So we have a very cost-efficient organization today and a very, very high-tech product platform. And of course, the second point, as I talked about, we will definitely focus on making Hipro successful in the Chinese market, because that means that we will be successful as well, potentially getting products to Europe and start to sell here also through the CE marking process going on over there. And then we will focus on striking other deals and expand with similar type of agreement, partnership agreements into other big markets. So the key actions for the Qlife personnel is that we expect around 40% of our people will focus on technical and design transfer production setup in China from now on. 25% will focus on the regulatory approvals in China and EU, as I talked about, making that happen. About 15% of our people will be focused on striking new partnerships for new markets. And of course, 20% of our people will focus on fulfilling all the requirements related to being a listed company and all the administrative tasks. And my last slide here is really just to summarize what I think are the big points for Qlife. First of all, I think Qlife is just at the beginning of sort of a new area where we will see new models being implemented into the public healthcare system. And eventually that will transition into the homes of people where you actually can start to be, an active player in monitoring your health at the clinical grade level with your blood data. We think that has really big perspective. we have already proven and continue to prove with this Chinese deal that the platform can be scaled. We think we play very actively into public healthcare models that needs to be developed. We think in the end that people will actually get better treatment outcomes from this. And generally speaking, there is a new mindset and understanding that monitoring biomarkers is something important. And the last graph I have included here is really just to show you something which I think is kind of funny or interesting. And that is that when we were at the height of the COVID in March of 21, the EcoHealth platform was relatively new, which really equals a certain amount of risk, high risk in the product platform. At that time, we had a market cap of around 600 million SEK. Today, in November, December 23, the product platform is very mature. I think our potential, hence, is higher than ever. You could say the risk in the product platform is low, and business model is probably moderate to low. So we are in a much, much better position, but our market cap is very much lower than that. And I think obviously that we at Qlife from now on will work really to make sure that the value becomes, transparent and transition into our share. So that's our job forward. That's all for me. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much, Thomas. So in the case study that you presented there, sort of in the beginning of the presentation was about pneumonia, but I was curious about if there's any other use cases for EcoHealth.
Yes, in the UK, we worked with a company there which is very close to the NHS. And here it's typically people with heart failures, which are, not necessarily very critically ill, but where you need to monitor certain heart biomarkers that gives the physician the exact status of where these, how they are doing. And it's so much cheaper to keep those people in the home as opposed to having them occupying a bed in the hospital. And so we're seeing the exact same trend with cardiac. In China, we also see it with kidney failure. That's also a very big field. So those are the three areas that we sort of is involved with. And but I think there will be many more fields.
When I read through the Q3 report, there was a mention of a strategic overview, and I assume this sort of relates to the cost reduction program that you presented here towards the end. You write that the new operating model means that you will sell your product as a concept. Why is this the right move?
Well, I think, we have tried to sell our product. I guess you can say we always been a little bit ambitious because we wanted to bring this product platform, which we really think is, really, really nice. It's really a very high-tech product. And we wanted to, go straight to the end goal, so to speak. We wanted to bring it into the hands of consumers, you and me, layman person. But what we have learned is that that's probably a little bit too ambitious because as I was talking about, people still are not entirely ready, to sit at home and do a finger stick, get blood out of the finger and then into the capsule and then, get the data and maybe more importantly even to, what do they do with the data and what does it actually tell them. So I think, things like that has meant that there are still barriers to market. So we are conceptually, we are trying to move this forward into something which is still in a professional setting. And here we are really seeing that there are lots of different initiatives going on to be able to do something like this. And I think we can play a really important part of this because, as I was talking about, being able to send blood from the home is still impossible. There's no system approved for that. So without systems like EcoHealth, you cannot really do that. And that's that's what we're talking about in the report.
Has it affected sales cycles?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of sales, obviously, we have been a little bit surprised again, that, I guess we were a little bit naive in the beginning. We thought there would be a lot of more people interested in just selling. But I guess what we are realizing is that to sell this product, it requires a pretty big sales and marketing machine, which we don't have. And of course, then also it's necessary to have the regulatory approvals before you actually can start that. We have found a way to bring the product to the market initially as a wellness product or so-called research use only product, which is possible. But obviously that's not the absolute best way of doing it. It allows us to put the product on the market. But without the actual approval, it's difficult really to market the product. So what we are seeing is that can we get the product into the professional setting, basically everything I talked about here, then the public is very, very interested in purchasing this platform, and hence we would expect pretty significant demand for the product. But it is a requirement here that we have the regulatory approvals.
So let's move on there then. We'll have to wrap it up in just a moment, but I'll leave on one final question. We've heard a lot about your partnership with Hypro Biotechnology, but I'm curious towards the regulatory process as well. When it comes to costs relating to it, how does the distribution look like in the partnership?
Yes, that's very simple because they will carry 100% of the cost. Essentially, we will have no cost from China, and I can actually let you know that we've been over there now 2 times, and I still have not had my credit card up from my wallet because when we arrive there, the Chinese, they receive us and they take care of everything. So and of course that doesn't mean so much. But the idea is to say that the Chinese will carry all the cost related to the Chinese market. And of course, I also want to stress, we're obviously not naive. We understand that there is a danger to selling in China, et cetera, et cetera. But as I talked a little bit about, we have a model to make sure that we keep control of all the source codes, all the very complex components of the device, et cetera, et cetera. So I really think this can be very good. And for Qlife, there's a lot of indirect financing in this agreement through them carrying all the costs.
Thank you very much, Thomas Warthoe, CEO of Qlife.
Thank you so much. I appreciate being here.